Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Leaders Dojo. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I'm very glad you're here. Let us know where you're tuning in from, right? Whether it's from LinkedIn or YouTube, uh, and so that we can say hi to you. I'm very glad that we have a very special guest tonight. Actually, tonight is the first time I'm having a conversation with her. I just realized this. But I've always admired her on LinkedIn. We connected on LinkedIn, I think, in 2020, and um, and her posts just have this effect on me. I don't know why, right? It just has this effect on me, and I really feel very touched whenever she shares. Because Charlene has a very um, special story, and I think it's very inspirational because, as the title tonight says, from victim to victor to healer. So, being an abuse victim herself, she has managed to realize what has happened to her and what is happening to her, and be able to overcome that. And now she's on a journey to help others as well. And we were having a very interesting conversation just before the show. And I guess I'm going to throw all my interview questions out the window now and probably just continue the conversation with her, right? Because there's, in about 15 minutes that we were on the show. And that's why, Jacqueline, we were a bit late, right? I mean, I was just learning so much from her just in that 15 minutes. So that was yeah, just before the show. Jacqueline, you lost sound. I'm not sure whether it's me or not. Anyone else, if you can hear me fine, just maybe drop a comment in the box. But yeah, let me apologize to those. Meantime, let me apologize to those who have been waiting. So without further ado, let me just bring Charlene into the stream after this. Hello, hello. Welcome, Charlene, to the show. Really honored
Hi,
to have you here.
good day, Chee-Seng. I thank you so much for inviting me. And I think this is the second time that we meet. We meet in Marketing in Asia online meet,
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's right. Wow, that was like almost 2 years ago, I think. Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
cannot
That's
forget
right. That's right.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the most
And I
interesting
did
people there.
say as well that I really admire you. I remember now. I did say I admire you. What you shared on LinkedIn then as well. So okay. Now you know the praise is sincere, right? I've forgotten all about that, and now I'm saying it again.
Right?
uh,
Sure.
Okay, all right. Well, we seem to have been having some audio visual issues. Jacqueline, I'm not sure whether you still can't hear us. I hope even if you can't hear us, I hope the captions are on. You can check it out now. Um, who is this? Oh man, StreamYard has a problem with some LinkedIn users. You can hear but no video. Sometimes that happens if you are watching from, I think, on the mobile. If there's too much of a video load, all right, or maybe on desktop if you have too many tabs open. Okay, let's say hi to some people. I think you might know some of these as well. Uh, oh yes, I apologize to Jacqueline. Uh, Hi Casey, how are you?
Yeah, I
Long
know
time no
Casey.
see. Yeah, I think I haven't. When was the last time I saw you, Casey? I think it was on James' show. I think
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
a long time ago. Chimin, hi. My my very strong, very strong supporter of the show. Really appreciate him. He's always here. Oh, okay. Suchi Eng. Okay, I think she's talking to this person,
Mhm.
Suchi. Okay. Hi, Suchi. I'm guessing because it looks like this on the StreamYard, so I'm guessing Jacqueline is talking about you. Okay, so thank you all for joining us. So this show is really about having a conversation, and I think tonight we have a very important conversation that needs to be had. More, and I think e- among Asians, I think it's a conversation that really needs to be had. I was just telling Charlene just now, sharing with Charlene just now that some some people who are close to me actually, late in their life and also late in my life, actually, shared that they were abused and molested when they were younger, and I was saying that I was so shocked that I didn't know how to react, and I could have reacted better, I could have responded better, but I just didn't know how to respond, and I think um, and that probably stopped them from ever sharing again because that kind of response, I would imagine nobody wants to see, right? And the other issue is about men who are abused, and how we often have a very different response to people like that. But we'll get more into that conversation later. But right now, let me just pass the platform over to Charlene. And Charlene, why don't you say hi to our viewers and introduce yourself? Tell us, a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now, maybe your
Mhm.
background.
Okay, first and foremost, before I start introducing myself, I just want to remind everyone that the topic is a bit sensitive, might get a bit sensitive. Now, if you are triggered, it's all right to breathe. Okay, it's all right to step back, to calm yourself. Okay, so that the trigger warning. Okay, so yeah, I actually before I start talking, especially because the topic is trauma and abuse, I usually say that, no, to manage the trigger, to calm, no. So by the way, I'm Charlene Lucas. Okay, so I'm actually a registered psychologist in the Philippines. I'm also a certified clinical traumatologist by Traumatology Institute of Canada and Green Cross Academy of Traumatology. And I'm also a certified in sexual abuse trauma by American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress. So my job, or most of my clients, no, by the way, I'm a trauma therapist, and most of my clients are victims of sexual abuse and violence, and also childhood abuse. So that's mainly what I do. It's heavy but fulfilling, I would say.
You mentioned three kinds of abuse: sexual, physical, and what's the other?
childhood Childhood
With
abuse.
how is that different? That
Actually,
means
well, there is actually a sexual abuse happened when you are an adult, and sexual abuse
uh,
happened when you were a child. And it's not just only sexual abuse per se. When I say childhood abuse, it could also be neglect, it could
mm,
also be physical abuse, emotional abuse, and abandonment, all those things.
oh wow. I mean, just hearing those words, I'm just feeling a bit.
Breathe. Breathe.
Yeah, I mean, I expected this to be a sensitive issue, but I didn't expect it to have that much of
Heavy.
an effect on me. Okay. Uh, okay. Let's go to our first question. What motivated you to go into clinical psychology, specifically in trauma?
Okay, so this is kind of a long story, but first I just wanted to be a psychologist. Psychologist in a sense, not only in clinical but also in industrial.
Mm.
And trauma, I haven't really that much of idea of trauma. But when I was reviewing in the board exam, that's where I have this. what do you call this one? I would say realizations that I'm suffering also from trauma. That I thought I has already get over it, no, forgiven it, and all those things. And then when I seek healing, when I seek therapy in my mentor right now, that really opened my eyes in the world of trauma. That's where I started to get interested in trauma.
Mm.
And from then on, most of my clients or most of the clients that I'm attracting are victims or suffering from trauma or victims of abuse. Same like what I've experienced.
Mm.
So there.
Okay. Um, you did mention just now that you thought that you had forgiven and moved on from the past. Um, how did that look like actually that you thought that you had moved on, but then what pushed you to the realization that you actually haven't? There's still all those things that is affecting you.
Because when I'm actually reviewing PTSD or in the spectrum, why am I getting this kind of triggers? Like hearing
Mm.
abuse and then having this kind of symptoms, manifestation. I'm really getting triggered. On that part, actually, I'm getting this kind of um, I feel uncomfortable. And I also had this kind of realization that that's why my relationship is keep on failing
Mm.
one after another because I'm afraid. And I'm kind of a bit stuck in my life and burning out myself. No, all those things. So that's why I seek help before I started helping other people. So I
Mm.
thought I have forgiven it, but why am I having this kind of manifestation still?
Mm. Okay. Um, okay, before I forget, I need to say this. This is a conversation that's it's not just between me and Charlene. I think we want to invite everyone into the conversation. This is really an important conversation, and I think as we go along, there's a lot of things to discover. Uh, I think Charlene has some amazing perspective to offer, right? Because you are not just a counselor, but you are actually having gone through the experience yourself and going through the healing yourself. I think you see things from you know very different angle probably from many other people. So do drop your question or comments into the chat box if you have any. Let's have this important conversation. I think it's really really important. Okay, so in your work, mm, in your experience, like as a counselor, you know, what are some of the challenges that you find that often trauma survivors face? Or do
First
we call
is
them trauma survivors, or are
oh,
they just
uh,
traumatized?
survivors. Yeah, so
Okay,
I would say they're survivors. No,
okay.
the challenges that they're facing is one is they're stuck in life and
Mm,
they're always afraid. And at the same time, their relationship is also failing. Same goes with what happened to me before. And they don't know they don't know how to move forward in life. And why am I or why do they specifically feel this kind of uncontrollable emotions? So those are their challenges when they come to me. And when we work on their healing, now they get to realize, oh, this is where it's coming from. This is the root cause. This is where my angry issues coming from. This is where my manifestation is coming from. All those things. So yeah, those are their challenges. And usually, victims of sexual abuse, especially if they're not open to it, they don't tell me firsthand. Usually,
mm,
even if I already know the symptoms, the manifestations, that this might be rooting from sexual abuse, they don't actually tell me. Usually in the first session.
which which brings me to my question: if they come to you, they know that they're coming to you for therapy. Do they fill up some kind of preliminary survey where they already have told you this?
Well, yes, they do fill out the intake form. And I actually, my intake form really specify, let's say, for example, are you a victim of ganyan? Are you a victim of sexual, sorry, I'm speaking Tagalog, no? Are you a victim of sexual abuse, or do you experience it, or do you have experienced physical abuse rather, or all those things, all root causes of trauma. They feel it out, but there are times that they don't actually check it. Some check it, but they don't want to discuss it.
Oh, okay. So the trauma is so great that even after they come to you, they know they have this problem that they need to come to you, and even after they filled in the form, they still can't open their mouth to just discuss it with you.
At
Is that
usually first
sometimes?
session, yeah,
Yeah.
usually first session they don't. But there are some, yes, there are some that, especially when once they know my story, once they know who I am, first session they already tell me, oh, I'm a victim of sexual abuse. Okay.
So what holds them back? Uh, you know, because to me, if they are willing to come forward, what still holds them back? Even then, even when they're already there.
Okay, I think the thought of they might be judged, or let's say the shame
Mm,
of what happened to them. And usually in the first session, they just tell me they cannot sleep, they're having problems with their relationship, with their work. That's usual in the first session. And then when we go deeper, there's still a lot of things that needs to
mm,
be uncovered. So there, I would say it's they're afraid to be judged and the shame of it. So that's why
mm.
they're not telling that in the first session usually.
So yeah, so this I think leads me to this next question. It's generally hard for Asians to seek expert help, especially when you have to open up about something as deeply hurtful and personal as abuse, right? So how do you see this changing? I remember, like I was telling you just now, even in my own experience, I mean I've I've not been abused, but my reaction to people saying that they have been abused, I think is in the past really been, for lack of a, I mean, to put it nicely, it's really been lacking, right? So, so I mean, in terms of people seeking help and people around them supporting, do you see this changing?
Okay, so first is if it is it's generally hard for Asians to seek help. I think it's not just only Asians, but also in other countries, especially if your experience, or if your trauma is rooting from abuse. It's really hard to really to seek help from that. And when I say this changing, no, yes, I think it is changing because of the pandemic. Okay,
Mm,
and people are more open to
mm,
mental health problems. So people are coming more, seeking professionals like me, no. And usually they're just asking me what's if how can I help them on their mental health. That's what they usually ask me. And then
mm,
later do they found out that their mental health issue is coming from their experiences,
mm.
those abuse. So yeah, that's usually the what you call this happening, in the therapy sessions.
Okay. But what about the people who are actually around them, right? So I believe there might be many who, I guess, maybe I'm not sure about the younger generation, but people like me who are late 40s, coming from the older generation, abuse um, is kind of like sexual abuse, especially, is kind of like a taboo word. Physical abuse, we are, I think, people from my generation, Asians in particular, is like, okay, that's part of growing up, right? We get beaten by our parents all the time. Uh, but I think for older people, there is a certain cut-off point between beaten for discipline or beaten when your parents are in a rage, and actually crossing over to like serious abuse. And I think that line is a bit blurred, so that's why people in my generation is like, okay, just deal with it. But what about people around the abuse victims, trauma survivors? How can we better respond and support uh, uh, people have gone through these terrible experiences.
First is not to judge them, okay, not to
Mm,
judge them, and to not to invalidate what they feel, because everyone has a different take on what happened to them. So if they say that it's hurt, that they're hurting, or they haven't really forgiven or forgotten that, by the way, there's no such thing as forgetting, no, we all it's all stored here, but it's just a matter of processing. So if they say
mm,
that they haven't forgiven yet, they haven't moved on yet, respect that. Respect that. Because usually what we tell to those people, oh, you just move on, forget about it. It's all in the past.
mm,
But the thing is, they are still hurting. The pain is still there, and they want someone to understand them. As actually what I've read, when there is pain, there should be compassion.
mm.
It doesn't when a person is in pain, you should not meet them by judgment or by criticism or by invalidating, but by being
Mm.
compassionate to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because, especially if the people are coming from a place of deep shame, embarrassment, and I don't know, could guilt be part of it, right? Because if you open this, it's like bringing shame to the perpetrators, right? If they are close family members, do you face that as well? People feeling that conflict.
Yes, I actually have this client, like she was physically and also sexually abused by her partner. And then my client actually asked or told her grandmother. And the grandmother said, oh, that's part of marriage life.
Oh,
So it's like, don't tell it to anybody because it's a bit it's part of marriage, like it's something like that. It's like normalizing the abnormal event.
I think this is coming from very, very old school Asian thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like I can imagine people in their 70s and 80s who would hold on to this because I guess coming from a culture during those days when it's really very patriarchal, right? That those days when the women depended on the men for their livelihood, that would be the wisdom of the day. But since that is no longer the case, I think we need to have a new response
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah, even if it is, let's say it's the old school or something, but we need to like really see the situation as it is. I mean, men and women are crying or hurting, and we're just telling them that it's part of marriage life, or you don't tell it to anyone because it's shameful in the family.
Mm,
So if that event was done to that person or to you, how would you feel? It's like you don't have anybody to go on, or to hold on to, or to tell your story or to help you, because they're just telling you that it's part of marriage life. Just have to stick to it, or let's
yeah,
say be okay with it, even if it's not okay.
yeah, and I think it's. I mean, I feel it's really cultural because and something that needs to be changed culturally as well, right? Mindsets of people. Because as I mentioned just now, the two people who are close to me, I just realized, this detail when uh, because this is a family, right? So when the first victim told her mom, so her mom didn't do anything about it, right? Because well, I'm guessing you had to depend on the man for livelihood, so you don't want to rock the boat so much, right? And same thing happened to her daughter, and she didn't say anything about it, right? And I don't know why, because at that time the mother was independently financially able. So which leads me to think, well, then it's probably cultural, right? That culture, that thinking, that mindset has been passed down, you know. So I'm not sure how far it's going to be passed down. I'm not sure if the third generation has been abused or not. I hope not. I really hope not. I don't think so. but I think yeah, it's a mindset shift. I'm not sure whether it's particularly Asian or or it's common around the world. What do you think, Charlene?
Yeah, there are some culture, or there are some, let's say, I would say, parts in the world that it is passed down, okay, unknowingly. And there are some, also some situations that you as a parent, if you were raised in that kind of environment, and if you are not aware of the damage, or of is it right or is it wrong, is it really helping me or not, if we are really not aware on that, then yes, we are gonna pass it on to our children,
Mm,
because that's how we are brought up. That's how our programming, as I've said, that's our programming. But that's why there should be people needs to speak up to this, that and to stop the cycle of pain, so that
mm,
more and more people get to be aware, oh, what happened to me is not good, what happened to me should be stopped, what happened to
mm,
me should not be passed down to my children or to my children's children.
mm.
Having that kind of awareness, okay, and people speaking up, we can stop that cycle of pain.
Does it take a lot of strength to own up to that trauma that you've experienced?
Yes, actually, actually, healing first is healing is difficult. It's really difficult because you need to face your pain head on, and telling it is also difficult. It's harder. Okay,
Mm,
healing is hard, telling is harder. But as what I mentioned in our private talk earlier, Chesheng, right? Uh, if you don't actually uh, tell it, or if you don't initiate, okay, who will? And it's
mm,
not just only me as a trauma therapist, but it's also my mission or my purpose. I take this it my mission and my purpose to really reach out to people, okay, who had also suffered the same wound as mine, so that
mm,
more and more people get help and speak out. Because the only way that this will not stop is for many people not to speak up. And if you want to stop this cycle of pain, this sexual abuse and all those things, men and women should speak up to it,
mm.
to really put light on it.
Which means society, as in general, needs to have these conversations to
Ye-
destigmatize
Yes. Same goes with
abuse.
mental health. Yeah, with mental health and depression, anxiety, all those things. Same goes with trauma. We need to speak it out, because I think Brené Brown said this, that for shame to, let's say, to grow big, no, you should be silent about it.
Mm,
Okay, and for you to beat shame, you need to talk about it.
mm,
And shame is, let's say, the negative cognition of people who suffered from violence and sexual abuse. It's the most toxic cognition of all, because it's a direct assault to yourself. So that's why
mm,
people who are victims of sexual abuse and domestic violence, they they're like, they just want to be small as much as possible. They don't want to be seen because of that shame.
mm,
So we need to speak it out. We need to reach out to people and tell them it's all right to seek help, and your story is valid, your pain is valid.
mm. But I think there are also people who go the other way, right? They become very extroverted, but in not so maybe in some ways not very healthy in certain aspects of
Yes.
their extroversion.
Trauma dumping. Trauma dumping is like they're just telling their trauma without really even,
Mm,
um what do you call this one? Filtering what they say. Although I'm not saying na to stop saying your story. I'm just saying
mm,
that just choose a proper audience and choose proper venue, because not all people can really,
Yeah.
take that kind of topic.
Yeah, and I think you do it very well, Charlene. When you share on LinkedIn, as I mentioned just now, you share um your experience, but you don't come across as airing your bitterness, and you don't give
Yes.
too much information. And I
And
like that
bulldog.
you always,
You're
and I
not bulldog.
always, yeah, and you always put a learning to it, right? And I feel that's just so empowering, because that's that's how we grow, right? We learn from our pain, we learn from our experiences. We don't just take it and say, yeah, yeah, this is it, right? If that is it, then we're not going anywhere.
And the the way to really tell your story is like your pain, you have to craft it into something beautiful.
Mm,
And a lot of, let's say, artists or painters or creatives,
mm,
even if there's so much pain, they turn their pain into beauty, into something beautiful, or into a
mm,
blessing to others. Because if we're
mm,
just dumping our pain to people around us, then it creates more pain. So it's like, before you tell your story, of course, seek healing first, seek therapy first, so that you get to have that insights. Uh, but it's all right to tell your story, but as much as possible, not to really dump it, like
mm.
you're creating more fear or more pain to other people.
Yeah, and I think that's important, right? So, uh, I mean, there's a place where you need to share the pain. You need to talk about your pain to be shared. I think that's also there also needs to be a platform where people around you have the permission to share your pain, right?
Mhm.
And otherwise, it's just like wild explosions everywhere.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's say hi to a few more people. I've checked on my phone. I know who this is. Hi, Avril. Avril is here. Thank you for joining us. Um, we say hi to Yetmi also, and Faith, who's joining us from Singapore. Okay, so Melchizedek has a comment. Good to recognize this and discuss so that people know how to respond and acknowledge the emotion that the victim is going through, and also people close to the victim. The response of let it be, just be silent, it will bring shame is one response, but digging beneath can also reveal that both do not know how to process and respond to such a situation. Yes, I'm one of those who are close to the victim. So right now I'm learning to be more, still learning to be more, able and compassionate in responding. Charlene, do you want to make a comment on that?
Well, actually, this is what we have discussed earlier, right?
Mm,
So yes,
yeah.
that's the usual response of a lot of people, that it will bring shame to the family. Okay, so just move on. Okay, and but the thing is, we're invalidating the feeling of the person. Now, how to respond? Okay, first and foremost, you have to know your limitations. We all have limitations, and we cannot help everyone, especially if we
Mm,
don't have the right tools. So, if a person, somebody that you love, that's a victims of sexual abuse or domestic violence, just be there. Sometimes you don't have to talk. You just need to, let's say, be there, a tap of the back, or maybe a hug. Just really knowing someone understood them and listen. Now,
mm,
if you cannot help them, then maybe, can I help you in seeking a professional, or would you like to seek a professional that can better help you? That can really give, the victim, the survivor, confidence that
mm,
someone is supporting them and someone is encouraging them to seek help. So that's one.
mm,
Of course, we all have limitations, and I actually also have some issues that I cannot handle because it's
mm,
not within my specialization, and you refer them properly. So
mm,
there. So just being there, listening, and understanding, even not saying a word, that itself has a big impact.
Yeah, excellent. Um, Something for me to definitely need to learn that. Um, Kiki says this is a worldwide pandemic. I was born in Hong Kong, lived there the first 8 years of my life. I live in Scotland, and it's also a massive problem here. Kiki, maybe you can. How is there a difference, right? Because I think here we've been talking about the Asian context where there's a lot of shame, and there's a lot of tendency to cover up. Don't bring shame to the family. Is there a difference in how it's um, processed there in the West? Maybe just drop it in the comment box. Okay,
Well,
so yeah,
sorry. Yeah, if I may
no, go
just
ahead.
share, because I also have some clients in the West, in
Yeah,
the US specifically, and also in the UK. I have clients. Yes, there's that shame as well, and
wow.
I have this client like her mom did not push through the case to the
Mm,
perpetrator because the mom is saying, "Oh, she's or he's your what do you call this one? He's a family friend, a close friend. So will
mm,
bring shame to the family." So
wow.
that actually that pain, it's not necessarily the sexual abuse that the client uh, need to work on, but the mom did not support her. That is actually much more painful because the mom did not support her. So
Mm,
yeah, it's the same.
okay. Wow. Okay. That blows one of my preconceptions about the West. I thought the West was a bit more open-minded.
Well, I guess some parts also in the Philippines or in Asia, some parts, but there are some parts as well that there's still that kind of stigma around it.
Okay. All right. So yeah, if you are enjoying these conversations and you find value and insights, don't miss a show. Right, hit the bell button on my YouTube channels and on my LinkedIn as well, so to keep updated. Or you can join the LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn group. It's not a secret group. It's a private group because I don't want to spam people. So if you want to get updates whenever a show comes on, who's the next guest going to be, uh, do join the group. You can DM me. I'll give you the link, right? And then you'll be the first to know who's going to be on the shows. Okay. Um. Okay. So this question, you did mention it just now. So I think I just want to direct this to you. Where is it now? Okay. Here we go. So how did you overcome your own background as an abuse victim to help others? You did give a trigger warning just now, right? Just in case people feel triggered. Um, then how do you do it, right? Since you are working with people who have suffered abuse, are there times when you feel triggered yourself, or how do you overcome that?
Yes, I do feel triggered at times, but before I act, as what I mentioned before, I start helping other people. I help myself first. I
Mm,
work on myself first because definitely I will get triggered every time that I'm going to face client, and I will not be of help to them if I myself is blind or haven't seek help yet or work on my trauma. So yes, I actually also work on perpetrators as well. So they are I was actually really triggered as well. But of course I have learned to contain it and not to really bring my own issue or what happened to me to the client. I focus on the client. I focus on their pain. And I always think that hurt people will hurt other people. They don't
mm,
want to do that on purpose. Okay? Yes, it might look like they have abused somebody, they might hurt somebody, right? That they don't have that humanness inside them. But I always see behind the pain. What's the
Mm.
pain? And whether it's victim or perpetrators, is I it's just one issue. They were all suffered when they were young or at some point on their life. So now they're also hurting other people, and there are also victims of abuse, or men and women who are victims of abuse. Now they become the perpetrator. They hurt other people, not sexually, but they really get violent to other people.
Mm.
So I always see behind the pain and understand and not judge them. And yes, to answer your question, I'm triggered, but I have learned to work on with it by that kind of mindset. But that kind of mindset. So there.
Do you need to go for a detox section yourself after these kind of sessions of
Yes,
counseling?
yes. I actually sleep 16 hours after the week work. I need to sleep for a whole day.
I can imagine. Um, because I'm asking because my daughter is taking a psychology degree now. She's in the second year, and she thought of being a clinical psychologist, but after going through 2 years of uh, the degree and having done an assignment on counseling, she decided no, this is not for me. I can't I can't be listening to people's junk day in and day out. so so I mean I can imagine it really takes a lot of strength to be a counselor, right? I mean, I used to be very active. I mean, I remember when I was a youth leader back in the day in the church. I was sort of like a big brother to a lot of people, and there were some of the youths who would come and talk to me. They won't reveal. Not many of them will reveal the deepest, darkest, whatever trauma that they have,
Mhm.
but it comes out in several other ways. Right? I'm having this problem. I'm having that problem, like you said, and nothing, no amount of advice will ever convince them that it's overcomable, right? And I remember back then being very immature. And it's like, what's wrong with these people? Why can't they take good advice?
Well, people who are suffering from trauma, they are still stuck on that negative event, or I would
Hmm.
say, I'm trying to explain it on a layman's term,
Yeah.
but the body that remembers. So their body, or it's embedded, not necessarily embedded, but it has an impact on their body. So now they're
Hmm.
acting automatically, right? So when we do trauma therapy, we desensitize it. When I mean desensitizing it, it's like this is they're very sensitive in stimuli or in emotions or something, and now we are desensitizing it. Now, even if they're faced on that same situation, they are not much reacting to it.
Hmm.
So there. So yes, the body remembers. Trauma is not only registered on the mind, it's registered on the body as well. So don't
Hmm.
matter how you explain to them, if you haven't really worked on the core or the root cause of their trauma, nothing will come in.
Yeah. Uh, Talking about my youth days, I remember one of the young girls, very very young girl. She was 14 or 15 at the time. I remember. Um, I think she felt neglected by the family. I don't know whether she was really neglected, or maybe emotionally neglected. She was from a well-to-do family, right? On the outside, she looks very comfortable, right? So she came to our youth group, and I remember going to her house one day to visit her, and she was just talking about her string of boyfriends. 14 years old, and she was talking about, okay, this boyfriend, we got together for like 2 weeks, and then after that, I guess I guess he's not matured enough to deal with whatever. I'm thinking, wow, you're 14 years old and you're using these words. And I remember thinking, to myself, I'm not sure whether she was being used by all these boys because she obviously felt very needy, right? For attention. I mean, she obviously looked very needy for attention. Um, but it just occurred to me that whether she was being used or whether she was being neglected, it came out as she came across as somebody who's very articulate and matured in how she saw herself and her situation. Right? Do you see this in your counseling sessions with some people as well?
Yes, actually, most of my clients are high functioning professionals and has good jobs. Like, I mean, I even have what you call, so I even have a client who is, let's say, in a management position or in a top position in a very big company. Of course, I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's mostly of my clients. But the thing is, if you're gonna see their relationships or how their behavior, it doesn't match, right? So, in explaining to that girl, 14 years old, and she has a lot of boyfriends or she has a lot of partners, because just to explain addiction, this is addiction has a lot of forms. It's not just only drugs and alcohol, okay? And addiction is trying to numb and escape from the pain.
Mm,
So it's actually outside feeling in. So no matter how many men or women came into your life, they will never be enough because there's still that emptiness inside you that wasn't given to you when you were young. And trauma
mm,
is not only what happened to you, it's also what have not given to you. So same goes with emotional neglect. That's the most hardest thing to explain to my clients. They have this luxurious life. They went to a good school, their parents are rich and all those things. They're very comfortable. But why are they still feel empty? Why do they still feel that emptiness inside them? It's because their parents are not connecting to them emotionally.
mm,
They're very stressed, or they're not attuned to their child. So now the child is looking for love elsewhere.
mm.
All people that can give them attention, they're clinging to it, and they are not enough. So yes, as what I mentioned, addiction has a lot of forms, and addiction is always rooting on pain. So that's the pain that she's trying to feel.
Yeah, and yeah, it was just so sad. I highly suspect he was being used because the boyfriends were like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 week. It was, who has a relationship for weeks, right? So, and I just remember I was so sad, but I didn't know at all, how to respond, how to convince her to get out of the situation. And I was just sitting there and I was listening to her, and I was just like, I have no idea. I really have no idea.
So maybe she should seek
Okay.
help now.
Yeah, I mean, but that was like 30 years ago. Who seeks help for a 14-year-old girl in those days, right? The very mention of psychologist or psychiatry was like, oh man, you need to be committed into insane asylum. That's equivalent back then.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so I yeah, I guess things are changing now. I think it's for the better. Um, well, guys, if you have any comments with questions, do drop it. We have another 5 minutes, Charlene. I told you, right? It's going to go by very fast.
Wow.
Okay. Um. Okay. Let's try this question now. Why is it important, or why is it important for trauma survivors? But let me try and phrase this differently. When do you know that you actually need to get help?
When do you know? Okay, so I could not say when, but if you really feel that it's not you anymore, or you feel stuck, or you want to move forward in life, or you want to change something in your life, then seek help.
Mm,
Okay, because it's different people, different process, different journey. So you
mm,
have to honor your own process. But of course, if you think that there's something inside you that needs to be worked on, or if you want, change in your life, then yes, seek help. Seek help.
Is it possible to be comfortable in your pain?
Comfortable in my pain, I think. Wa- it really
Uh,
it it depends what
I
do you
don't know
mean.
whether I don't know whether I'm putting it nicely because I've seen people who are obviously uh, in pain. You know, there's a lot of triggering. There's a lot of things in life that trigger them. Um, and they live in a lot of fear and things like that. But it's it seems to be an even worse thing to actually try and step out of it, right?
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking the question. I mean, is it possible to feel like, okay, this personal hell that I'm in, that's my comfort zone. I'm familiar with this place. I'm okay with it.
Well, I would say they're not actually comfortable, but it's more of the
Mm,
fear of what's out there, fear what people will say, or maybe if they're, let's say, for example, victims of, or victims of domestic violence, suffering from domestic violence. They are in a hell situation. Their
mm,
husband or their wife is beating them, but they don't want to get out. Okay,
mm,
so they are not comfortable. And if you're really gonna hear them, they're always venting out, they're always ranting. So they are not comfortable. It's just that they don't want to address that fear or
mm,
the reality that this is your marriage, this is your situation. It's just like not being aware and having that courage that I deserve better. So those kind, they are not comfortable. They just, I'm just gonna stick to it because this is what I know. I don't want to change.
right.
So that kind of mentality.
So how would they be able to get out of it, and get better?
Self-love first is to really love yourself. I deserve better. I don't want this kind of environment. Now, what are the steps that I'm going to make? If if I should seek help, okay, or let's say plan things ahead just to get out of that kind of situation. It's hard to help somebody if they are not willing to help themselves. So that's
Mm.
the first step.
So unless they have come to some kind of realization that, yeah, things can be better for me,
Mm-hmm.
so it's nothing's gonna happen. Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes, yes.
And that's so sad, right? Because sometimes you see people in very bad situations, and you just think like, well, the door is over there, right? Just walk through it.
But they cannot see it because of fear. Usually
Right.
it's
Yeah, it's just so sad. I mean, I mean, I know people who are like this, and it's always something. It's like a heavy chain, right? It just holds them back. They just can't move out of it. No matter what you try, no matter what you say, um, they just feel like, I'd rather be here. You know.
with regards to
Okay.
that, just let them be.
Yeah, but it's really sad. I mean, it's really really sad. Okay. Okay. Final question for tonight. What do you hope to achieve or change? Through your work. Your personal. What's your personal vision and mission?
My vision, I would say healing to everybody who needs it. Okay. And my vision is because when you say trauma or when you say, let's say, abuse, it's not just only the person that is affected, but the community, their
Mm,
work, their people that they associated themselves with, let's say in their community, in their workplace, in their family. I
mm,
have so many clients that uh, they are victims of abuse, and now their children, they're hurting them children, which is it's
mm,
the children has no fault.
mm,
Okay, And at the same time, I also have a lot of clients that are very strict with their colleagues, with their subordinates, okay, being bullied to other people because of that pain. So if they have worked on it, then maybe we are much more kinder to one another,
Mm.
understanding to one another. Okay. And of course, we can help one another to grow. So that's actually what I hope to achieve. And hopefully, it's not just only people who can afford therapy, but especially those people, okay, who cannot afford therapy, or the poor people. They need help.
Mm.
Okay. They also need help. Yeah.
So how can the people around them, help to break that cycle? And I mean, something that's very, I think, on my mind now. Because um, how can you bring them to a place where they feel like, I mean, I understand that we can't force them through the door, but is there anything that we can do to bring them to the place where they realize that, hey, I think I can do better.
Okay. If is first is to acknowledge that they have their strengths, that they have capabilities and skills. Because if we keep on criticizing or humiliating, sorry, I'm having echo, no? Okay, correct. Okay, because if we keep on criticizing them or humiliating them, then they tend to wall up. They tend to, let's say, not to listen to us. But if we have encouraged them that they can do more, they have capabilities, they have to tap their own strength, then maybe we can encourage them to seek help, to do better. Okay?
Okay.
Now, of course, first is if it is not within our, let's say, capabilities, or we have our limitations, then maybe we can encourage them to seek mental health professionals who can better
Mm.
help them.
Mm. So basically, if I put it into very, very layman terms, uh, to bring them to a level of self-love, enough self-love where they think that I need to do something about this, we have to give them that love first.
Yes, that understanding. But of course, you have to set your boundaries as well, because there are
Mm.
some people that so much pain that they depend on you.
Cling, cling,
Yes,
cling to
they
people who give them their
yes,
attentions.
they cling on to you instead of really working on themselves. It's all right to encourage, but if you think that they are already depending on you, then set your boundaries.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very wise, and especially I think it's for men and women, right? You don't want to be in the place where women or men are clinging to each other, and especially if you're married, right? In partnerships.
The main gist is it's it, our life is our main responsibility, and
Yeah.
people around us is just support. Okay,
Mm.
so it's all right to support them, but they should still be in charge of their life.
Yeah. So the people around, I think, also need to set, yeah, like you said, set the boundaries and be very aware of themselves, right? What they are doing, and to be aware that, okay, these are the boundaries. Don't Either side shouldn't cross them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, well, the people trying to support them might become the next abusers, right? Taking advantage of a
Yes.
clingy person, right?
Yes. Yes. Correct.
I mean, I'm just a little bit skeptical about human nature, because we might start with good intentions, but I think we're all still human. We have weaknesses, right?
Yes, and we have our own baggages, our own issues,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's hard to carry someone baggage or issue. We can
yeah.
help them, but not to carry them.
So then that's why we need professionals like you, right? Who are trained and equipped to help people in this way. Okay, so well, I guess that's the end of our show tonight. If some of you notice that I'm a bit more quiet, tonight, because I think this is probably the most serious topic that we have discussed in the 2 years that this show has been on. But yeah, I think it is a very, very important topic that we need to address, right? Okay, Charlene, your three key takeaways for tonight.
Okay, first is whatever happened when you were young, I want you to take it by heart that it is not your fault. It is not our fault because we don't know anything. And there are times we get caught up in other people's pain. So that's one. But the second is, if you're an adult now, okay, you should be responsible, okay, on your life. That you are not, let's say, a product of your past. You can still change your future, or you can still change your present by really working on yourself. And last is, you are not defined by what happened to you. We can all change. And yes, we make mistakes along the way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we are defined by those mistakes. Or especially if there's some incidents that happen to us, we are not defined by that. Okay, so we can still change and heal.
Thank you so much, Charlene. For those of you who are not connected to Charlene on LinkedIn, do connect with her. She has amazing sharings, and it's not just about views. Okay, it's not just about view stories, but really sharing about life. Living your best life, right? And it's really great, and very bite-sized. Easily digestible. That's what I love about it. So thank you very much, everyone who joined us tonight. Sorry again that we started a bit late. Well, we ended a bit late also. So I guess that sort of balances thing. I'm not sure. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and thank you, Charlene,
Okay.
for making time to just discuss this topic and being so open about your own experiences as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
So with that, it's time to say good night to everyone, and I wish you all a good week ahead.